This is McKinley for alloutdoors.com, and this is a review of the REI Half Dome 2. Now, right off the bat, we'll go ahead and rattle off the specs. The REI Half Dome 2 is a somewhat lightweight backpacking general camping tent weighing in right at 4.5 pounds trail weight. That includes the body, the poles, the fly, the compression sack that the tent comes packaged in, as well as the included stakes with the tent. It measures right at 52 by 88 inches, so it's just big enough for either one adult man and some gear or two smaller people, maybe a couple going out and camping. But this really isn't a big hauler of a tent. It's more of a general camping and backpacking tent built down to a price point. And it's important to remember when you're evaluating gear like this made by REI that it's made at a price point that a lot of people can afford. The REI Half Dome 2 is coming right around $200 right now in 2016. Now the Half Dome 2 Plus is available. It's a little bit longer width-wise and lengthwise, but you do get a little bit of extra weight, and I prefer the Half Dome 2 regular, not the Plus, just because the extra weight that you get when you step up to the Plus, I don't feel is justified for the design of the tent. And now we're talking about the design, let's go ahead and get into it. This is a two-person backpacking tent. You've got a tent on the front, you can see here, that's open, and on the back as well, which is closed. You've got a pretty large vestibule on either area. You could actually probably put a dog or both packs in one vestibule and have plenty of room for any gear that you want to spread out and dry. That shouldn't be a problem. You've got plenty of room. Now, all around the tent, you've got the bathtub style floor with this nice sill nylon material, which I've found. And about 2 years of using the Half Dome 2, I've never found that to really need a footprint. A footprint is available from REI, but as long as you're just judicious where you put the tent, you should be good to go. Now, the main selling point, in my opinion, of the tent is the DAC Featherlite hub-style design that goes into the tent poles. If you ever wrestled with the little tiny kind of fiberglass or carbon fiber tent poles that come on some tents, it can be a nightmare trying to bend them into shape. This tent uses an all-in-one hub design tent pole, which takes a little bit getting used to it at first, but I'm telling you, once you set it up in the dark or once you're packing away wet and dirty and you don't want to be wrestling all these poles, it's a lifesaver. You've got one central hub with two plastic connectors and four poles that go all out in other directions, and that secures both the body of the tent and pitches the rain fly, which will roll in pictures at the end and show you how all of this fits together. But it's a pretty ingenious design, how they've managed to make sure that that one hub design secures everything at all four corners. Which, another great thing about this tent is that if you do plan on getting the footprint, you can get the footprint and pitch it with just the rain fly, the hub design, and the footprint. So if you're going out in winter and you want to be an ultralight, maybe on a ski touring, or you're going to be going out and you are car camping and you don't expect there to be a lot of bugs, then you can ditch the whole body of the tent, roll with just a ground cloth or the footprint and the tent and the rain fly, and be good to go and shed about half the weight of the system of this tent, which is really nice if you're trying to get in and get out. And that's the biggest gripe about this tent. At the $200 price point, it makes sense for the materials that go into this. They're a little bit sturdier, a little bit bulkier than, say, some of the other brands out there, but those brands cost twice as much for a similar featured tent. And those features that we're talking about are the double vestibules, the bathtub style floor, the hub design, poles with the name brand, materials in the poles, as well as just a lot of the guy outs and pictures will roll in. A lot of just creature comforts within the tent that make using and living in this tent a whole lot easier. And having ridden out a thunderstorm in the tent for a full 13 hours during a whole day, it was really nice to have a lot of the organizational pockets and stuff you find up at the top that really make this tent worth it, even though, you know, it comes a little bit heavier than other two-person tents if you divide it up, or if you just ditch the body like I've done before. and just roll with the fly and the poles, you should be good to go. You don't have anything to really worry about. The uses of this tent, like we've been talking about, are going to be kind of general camping, general backpacking. If you have the money, I would say step up to a little bit lighter tent, because there are some gripes about the stitching and the way the material's finished off that we'll get into. But this would be an excellent car camping tent, or anywhere where weight's not critical but size is. So this tent actually serves its main purpose inside my truck as just an extra shelter that I keep in there. If you get stuck or you need to stop for a few hours, maybe it's raining and you're waiting for someone to bring you gas, this is a great option to have, you know. Or you live up north, it's winter time, you might run into a storm where you have to shelter in place. This would be a great option to have in the back of the truck or in the trunk of your car, because it doesn't take up a lot of space. It packs into its own stuff sack. You don't have to buy anything. It's one of those things you could buy for relatively cheap and just stow away. And like we were talking about the sheltering ability of the tent, it's dubbed as a 3-season tent. What I'm going to say is that if you are, you know, south of the Mason-Dixon, you're not seeing a whole lot of snow, and you've got a quality sleeping bag, you could most definitely pitch this tent in winter. I've used it in January. I've used it in December. I'm using it right now in northern South Carolina, north of Greenville. This is a really nice tent to have because of the design of these hubs. The rain fly goes all the way to the ground, unlike on some other 3-season tents where it cuts off, where the mosquito netting cuts off. This fly covers the entire tent and really holds the heat in. But one of the problems you're going to run into is condensation. So while we're covering the design, the weatherability and everything, there are vents at the top of the tent that I wish were a lot larger. It does use a design with a Velcro opening that holds the vent open. On some of the colder mornings, like I said, pushing the limits of what this tent was really designed for, I have noticed a little bit of condensation buildup, not a whole lot, not a soaked sleeping bag, but just a little pet peeve when you're packing it in. You know, you got to unpack it when you get home to make sure it's bone dry before you put it away. There's not a whole lot of gripes on this tent. I would say some of the things that is bothering me a little bit on it, just using it throughout the years, I haven't noticed any durability issues with the stitching of the tent, but we're rolling pictures. There's some areas where I feel like they could have done a double stitching or maybe even added a triple stitching to the tent, and they didn't. I haven't noticed anything wrong with it, but it's just kind of a back of my mind thing. You know, you want to buy a quality piece of gear and you look at it and say, you know, it wouldn't have cost that much money to finish that off. The webbing on the tent, the gross grain webbing all the way through on the tie outs, and to reinforce the no-seam meshing all the way through, works well. It hasn't kind of fallen apart like other gross grain webbing. Once you abrade it a little bit, it falls apart. This stuff is good to go. It's easy to clean. I haven't noticed any problems cleaning it. You know, in the past, some of the other cheaper tents out there have had that woven nylon flooring. This has got a silicone nylon floor. You don't have to worry about this shedding or falling apart on you or even leaking. The taping all the way through, done correctly. There's not a whole lot of silicone taping that needs to be done, but I haven't noticed any leaking problems yet. I've refinished the fly one time, but as far as the main body of the tent is concerned, I haven't noticed any leaks. And just the main selling point of this tent, if you're looking for a on the cheaper side of backpacking gear, just a general camping tent or shelter to be prepared, this is a great option. Another great feature of the tent that if you're into it, you can choose your own color. On REI's website, there's a couple different. There's a pink and orange. I obviously went with the Army Cot green because I use it all the time, and I don't like some of the louder colors. But if you're into it, you can choose your favorite color up on the website, and it's available in several different sizes. I have had limited experience with the one-person version of this tent and the three-person version. I really feel like the 2, not the 2 Plus, but the Half Dome 2 is kind of the best value from the REI tents as far as usability, weight, and just overall quality of the materials. And just to recap, the Half Dome 2 from REI, it's a good-to-go kind of heavyweight backpacking tent or general camping tent where weight is not a critical issue, but size definitely is. Got silicone nylon throughout. You can pitch it without the body if you like, with just the that kind of hub-style design at the top with the aluminum poles. and it's really kind of a good-to-go Southerner's tent year-round, or maybe more of a three-season tent if you see a lot of snow up north or out west. Don't have a whole lot of complaints with it. It always just kind of keeps on chugging along. The more I use it, the more I like it. This has been a review of the REI Half Dome 2. I'm McKinley for AllOutdoorsGuide.com.